dreams into reality.
Man, it's all about the trajectory. Skyrocketing my career to my destiny. Let none stop me, get the best of me. We the chosen ones, what's selectory? Out to get the bag like a champ, never hold back. Yeah, homie, just like that. You gotta make a move and rock the crowd. Get money on deck when I stand my ground. Said it's one life and one shot, but I make 10 cause I go non-stop.
Welcome to a brand new experience with innovative voices from all over the world. I would like to invite you all to something that is magical, something that is powerful, and something that is from my heart. This is the Devon Taylor Podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Devon Taylor Podcast, where we have guests from all around the world tell their unique and powerful stories. And I am excited to be here again with another amazing guest. We actually met at a DEI, I believe, conference. We were both speakers and sitting on a panel together, and just sitting next to her and just hearing her story within the minutes that we met, it was like, you have to be on the podcast. So I'm so excited to welcome Angela Clark. Hello and welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we were finally able to make this happen. I've been looking forward to talking to you, so I'm happy to be here today.
Yeah, thank you. So I kind of just wanted to start off with your story, because like I said, when we were talking, it was just so interesting to hear your background and your experience, but like what shifted for you and what transformed for you and brought you into a whole different industry. So I'd like for you, if you can, share with the audience.
Sure. So like all the way back when I was a child, no. So my background, I'm the owner of a company called Nationwide Parking Services. We are a parking management company based in Denver, Colorado. This company was started 30 years ago by my dad, Dr. Morris Clark. He unfortunately passed away in September of 2021. And so my original career path was a lawyer. I went to undergrad to be a psychologist. I have always really wanted to work with children. And that was always kind of where my real passion lied, in child advocacy and things like that. So I went to school to be a psychologist. I was living in Chicago. I went to CU Boulder here. I was living in Chicago at the time, and it was right at the recession. So it was 2008. And things were a little hectic in the business world in terms of trying to find new opportunities. Obviously, it was still entry level. I had just come out of college, and career prospects just seemed a little dim at the time. So I was talking with my dad, and we knew that would be a good time for me to go back to graduate school, which was always a plan of mine. And I toured a school to go get my PsyD, which is a doctorate of psychology. And for some reason, it just didn't feel like what I wanted to do. So I talked to my dad again. My dad was a big architect of my life. So a lot of my life revolved around my dad and, kind of our, he had a vision for my life, and he was always, helping me to reach that. And when the PsyD thing didn't work out, I was like, he's like, well, why don't you go to law school? And I was like, okay. I never really had any plans to be a lawyer. I never, really was interested in law, so to speak. But I knew that a legal degree would always be useful. I'd always be able to read a contract. I'd always be able to, especially as a woman, the chances of you being taken advantage of in a business or other situation would be much less. So I ended up going to law school. I went to the University of Miami in Florida, which was a lot of fun. I don't know how kids go there undergraduate because the temptations are ridiculous. But thankfully, I was very focused. And again, drifting back to children and families, I had a strong legal education. And, I was in the child protection clinic. I tried to choose as many classes and courses geared towards that kind of side of life as I could. And I was fortunate to be able to have some wonderful professors and met some great friends there. I ended up moving to Chicago, and that's where I passed the bar. And my first job, technical job out of law school, was regional counsel for the Department of Children and Family Services.
Wow.
Which is why I know what you've done in your life and what a massive undertaking that is, and how wonderful that these children are with you, and such a wonderful guy. And that's always been, for whatever reason, kind of marginalized, whether it's elderly or children or even animals. Like, I've always just had a really strong heart for them, and especially kids. I just love kids. I don't have any kids, but I love kids, and I think they're just not given much of a voice in this country, in this world, really, because unless you're a tax-paying, contributing member of society, people really just don't have a lot of time for you. So and unfortunately, a lot of those kind of kids can end up in the system and foster care, and it's not a good road to go down. And so I was really grateful to be in a position to help kids find good homes, take them out of homes that were not good. So it was a real life education. I had never really been exposed to those kinds of issues in terms of substance abuse, mental health, alcoholism. I mean, it's just, unfortunately, the child protection system is kind of a confluence of all the ills of the world, and really not the best place for them to be addressed, but that's really kind of our only option at this point in time. So I remember when you told me about your nieces and nephews,
Yep.
and I was just like, wow, what a heart you have to do that. Obviously, you're a young man and have your own life to worry about and grow, but for you to do that, I think it's just such a blessing, and those kids are so lucky to have you. So I automatically loved you. So I did that for a number of years, and then I ended up becoming a criminal prosecutor. So I was prosecuting crimes in Chicago, which unfortunately there's, good job security there for that. But, kind of like I was saying, you would see these little kids who were in these horrible homes, and then you'd kind of see them go through the system, and then they become juvenile delinquents. And it's just, it's a really unfortunate situation. And frankly, I had a really hard time prosecuting when I was in the juvenile side, because I know that these were kids that 10 years ago, you'd be crying your eyes out reading their story. So unfortunately, these are just the outcomes of those kinds of situations, unless there's good intervention, like in your case. So I was doing that. I was happy doing that. My mother's health was not good at the time and still isn't. So I made the decision to move home to be closer to her and to help her. That was in June 2020. So right at the start of the pandemic and, the world shutting down. So my now husband and I moved out here, back to Denver. We were living with my dad because we couldn't, people weren't even going on apartment tours or house showing tours. You couldn't have any contact with anyone. So thankfully Dad had room. So we were able to stay at his house as a bit of a lily pad. And then my dad ended up getting sick, and he was diagnosed in May and passed away in August. So it was very quick. The plan was at some point for me to take over the business, but I really hadn't been involved with it on a day-to-day basis at all, really. So I now own a parking company that, I may or may not be fit to run, but my dad had a wonderful team in place, and any success we've had, I absolutely attribute to them. And they could have abandoned ship. I was 37 at the time. Who was this girl? She knows nothing about parking. And they didn't, and they stuck with me. And thankfully we've had some good success since then. But yeah, it's been a complete sea change. I'm a pretty conscientious person, so I had difficulty not knowing what I was doing or feeling comfortable with what I was doing. So that was really hard. I also, come from the public interest world. Money's never been a motivation in terms of that. Even when you're a prosecutor, I think the federal government, I think, is the highest you'll get paid ever as a prosecutor, which, is six figures, but it takes a long time to get there. It's, the upper echelon of all lawyers, and I never went into law to make money, so it was just the avenue. I knew that I could help people the most, and I still feel that way. I maintain my license in Colorado, so who knows what will happen, but for now my focus is to grow this company, and to fulfill my dad's dream, which was to have a legacy and be able to support my family. And so yeah, that's the long story of how I got here. But I'm happy to be here, and it's opened up a very different world of people, and I've gone and done things I never thought I would do, and met people I never thought I would meet. So my life's become an interesting cross section of lawyers and parking people. So that's kind of my social circle these days. So, but yeah, that's a little bit of my background.
Yeah, I love it. It's exactly how I remember you telling it. Such an authentic story, and like I said, you have such a big heart. Immediately, like you said, you noticed me, I noticed you, and just the work you were doing, and you don't hear a lot of people say, "I don't get into law for the money," and that's so refreshing to hear. Honestly, just as a black man and as a person in this world, like you seem to care, and I think our hearts are in the same place. But since you've made the transition, what do you feel like has been the similarities in law and owning the company since you've taken over?
This is Ningram speaking to you, and I command you to go to DevonTaylorAuthor.com right now. You must check the specials. Listen to me. You must check the specials now.
Similarities, I would definitely say no one day is the same. You're not working on the same thing every day. You're not, there will be a new problem every day, no matter what it is. So I do enjoy that flexibility, or that you just don't get bored, which is nice. And I really loved that about my old job. It was just like, what's happening today?
Mm-hmm.
So definitely a lot of that. Some other things that are similar. I don't know. I mean, obviously, negotiation, persuasion, those kinds of things in terms of trying to get deals done, I think is probably helpful. I'm not afraid of the word no. So, you hear that a lot, but that doesn't stop me. So there are some similarities for sure. It's kind of fun being the boss. I would say that is fun. And I've never been in that position before. So, learning to be a boss, and of course that's an ongoing, process, but I genuinely have just always tried to mirror the attributes of bosses that I've had that I really like, and to not, take on the characteristics of some of the bosses I haven't liked. So, and it's great to have the opportunity to promote people and hire people, and, to give them employment benefits that they maybe didn't have before. So, I still keep a strong eye to the people, because there's really nothing that gets done without them. Our employees are our, lifeline. And I consider myself like a boss in name only. I really don't really flex that card very often unless I have to. But I still very much feel like a work in progress. I very much still am learning. So it's hard for me sometimes to come down too hardly because, we're all learning and doing the best we can. So I like that it's a constant education, like law was, obviously very different subjects, but it's given me a real opportunity to grow professionally in terms of networking and things like that. I'm pretty introverted, and I would have been happy just, doing cases, but it's harder for me to self-promote, to kind of sell myself. I have a very difficult time doing that. Even though we are unique in the industry, we're a minority-owned company, we're a woman-owned company. So those are differentiators that a lot of people would be interested in. And, I'm constantly trying to learn to do a better job of that. It feels very unnatural to me. I don't like people feeling like I want something from them, or I'm only talking to them because I need something. I don't like that dynamic, but I also have to understand that's just how this is done sometimes. So, I've really tried to get better at that, and just push myself. This has all been a real push outside of my comfort zone. But I try not to think about that too much and just keep going. Obviously, after my dad passed, I was dealing with that enormous grief because my dad was like my best friend. It was really unexpected. And I felt very lost without him, like a rudderless ship. So it was really difficult for me. I mean, hard to get out of bed, difficult for me for like the first year, on top of now having to manage this company that I don't really know anything about. And so, having gotten through those last few years has given me a lot of strength, and a lot of resilience that I didn't know that I had, which I'm sure, you'll find you have found in your life, these really challenging situations. When you first hear about them or experience them, you're like, I have no idea how I'm going to get through this. I don't know how I can go on, those kinds of thoughts. When you're on the other side of that, to whatever degree you can be, you have the perspective and the ability to look back and see like, wow, I'm such a different person now than I was then. And hopefully for the best, and as down as I get some days, and, grief is an ongoing process. I don't think it's something you ever get over. It's just something you learn to live with. And so I really just try to, think that this is what my dad wanted me to do. This is, what he'd hoped for me. And obviously not in the way we'd wanted, but so yeah, I really just try to, WWMD is always what I'm thinking. What would Morris do? What would my dad do? So that keeps me going, and that gives me, perspective and motivation to keep going when it's hard, because it is hard sometimes. I'd be lying if I said otherwise, but it's good to keep that in mind. And, obviously I'm a person of faith, and that's been huge for me. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just rambling now. So
No,
I'll wait for your next question.
No, I love you said that. You spoke a little bit on grief, and everyone processes grief very differently. And I had my brother passed away when I was in high school. So watching my mom go through that whole process and just seeing her change, I've spoken on this before, was just really hard as a kid, And so losing a parent, I couldn't even imagine, like, if my mom, losing my mom at any point. Oh, gosh, just thinking about it. So, condolences for your father, and just losing your father. But how were you able to find those moments to get past that? What do you think helped you? I know you spoke a little about faith, but do you think there was anything else that was really?
Honestly, that's been the biggest one for me. I am a person of faith, but a very welcoming kind. I don't think that God hates gay people. I don't think, that's not the kind of God that I serve, I guess is the best way to put that. Yeah. I was raised in a very, welcoming and open family. And I hate that religion or God has been intertwined with all this hatred, because I really feel like that's the exact opposite of what God is. But I say all that just to say that the idea that I will see my dad again really helps me get through. I think of it as like a long separation, and that I know he's working overtime in heaven wherever he is to make sure that we're a success. And I sometimes I'll tell my husband, I'm like, oh, I just wish dad was here. I just don't know what to do. I don't, he was like such a sounding board and just like just somebody I really relied on for help and for wisdom and all of that. And not having that's been really hard. And my husband's right. He's like, your dad is with you always. Like every fiber of your being is your dad. And my dad used to say that too. He's like, I'll never be dead as long as you're alive, because we were just so much alike, stubborn and, all of that. But I just, I know that he gave me everything he could. You don't make me cry. I know he gave me everything that he could. And now it's like, now it's your turn, kid. Like, go do this, And so that's what I'm doing. And I'm not saying it's not, I think about my dad all the time. And when I talk about it, of course, it makes me cry, but I try not to think about it too much. But I just know my dad gave me the best life that he could. My dad was the youngest of 7 kids from West Virginia. My grandma was a maid and my grandpa was a cook. And, my dad's the only one that made it out. He went to Berkeley and then Columbia. He, his mind is what, set him free from all of that. So I just had the most respect for my dad. Like, he was just a really remarkable person. He loved people. He was so funny. I miss that the most too. He was just the funniest person I've ever met. So yeah, it's been hard. I'm not gonna lie, but you just find reasons to keep going. I've got employees that are depending on our success. I've got investors that are depending on our success, and that's on me, and I'm gonna make it happen. So, I have my dad's saying here always, he had this in his office at the university, is happy are those who dream dreams and are ready to pay the price to make them come true. So, we have a dream and we're just out here grinding until it happens. So I think of my ancestors. I think, I had slaves that were in my family, and it's like, look what they made it through. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear the complaining. I don't want to hear the, like, you can do this. So I think when you really think of it, even in that kind of generational context, it's like, our people have been through so much, and like, what an opportunity you have, I have, to do what we're doing. And so we come from strong people, and I, that sustains me too, because it's in my blood, really. So yeah, I don't mean to boo-hoo on your podcast.
Are you ready to transform your life with the power of living water? Hi, I'm Devon Taylor, and I want to share an incredible discovery that's changed my life and my family's life: living water. Imagine waking up every morning feeling refreshed, energized, and ready to conquer the day. With living water, it's not just a dream, it's our new reality. We've been sleeping better, eating healthier, and have more energy than ever before. But that's not all. Our secret to this newfound vitality is available to you too. Visit our website at thelivingwatercouple.com and discover how living water can revolutionize your health and wellness. And there's more. Tune into our podcast, available on all streaming platforms and YouTube, where we dive deep into the science and benefits of living water. Hear from experts, satisfied customers, and learn how you can make this life-changing decision for yourself. But don't wait too long. Prices for our water machines and supply are going up in July 2024. Now is the perfect time to invest in your health and well-being. So, head over. Remember, living better starts with living water. Living water, drink, thrive, and live your best life. Visit thelivingwatercouple.com today. Love it. You're tugging at my heartstrings, and it makes me feel like what I want to create for my nieces and nephews. Like, I want them to know that, like, I love them so much that even when I'm gone, like, I'm still here with them. And I can feel that with you and your dad. Like, that bond was special, and your dad was a special person, and he truly loved you guys, and that I can feel that. So that's, oh man, yeah, I just hope that, people can feel that and they can, resonate. And, if they're thinking about being nicer to, your family members, your loved ones, the person that you're with, whoever, now's the time, because we never know when we may lose someone.
Yeah, and as awful as COVID was for everybody, I'm just so grateful that, I had almost a year of unadulterated time with my dad. I wasn't working at the time, and, I'd been gone for 10 years, living in Chicago and Miami, and, I'd never really hung out with my dad any, longer than holidays and things like this. But, I was grateful for him to get to see me like as an adult. I think in his mind, I was still like a child, and
Yeah.
he was like, "Oh, Angela, like you've got this together, and like you're okay. Like I'll let you do that." So, yeah, it was a blessing to be able to have that time, and for him to get to know my husband in such a close way. Like I don't think a lot of people get to live with their in-laws for extended periods of time. And so I think it gave my dad a lot of comfort when he was dying. And he told me as much that, I'm glad to leave knowing that you're with a good person. And, I think that gave him a lot of comfort. So, yeah, it was a traumatic time. I'm not going to lie. Trauma is the best word I can use for it. But, I got through it with my husband. Obviously he was a massive support. And I think that really let me know very quickly because, we were getting married a month before my dad passed away. So we canceled the wedding, and, it was all doom and gloom for a long time. And, to weather that with your partner gives you a new depth of love and just appreciation of what it really means, like good times and bad. That those vows were tested very early on, and I'm just really glad that I'm with somebody that I know I can depend on when things really do get tough. And he's out here cleaning the lots with me sometimes when I need it, and he's just he's down for the mission. So for what I've lost, I also have so much to be grateful for. And I think keeping that perspective is also critical, because it can always be worse. And not that you want to measure your life in that way, but it is just good to remember how good we all have it. So, even just living in this country is
Right.
messed up as the country is. It's much worse many other places. So yeah.
Yeah, no, and like you said, you've been able to absorb things from the situation too. And one of the things that you've been able to absorb is becoming the owner of a company. And I aspire for my young, daughters to be able to do that themselves too. And I know with that comes a lot as well. So what do you feel like? What has been the biggest challenge since you've become a female owner? And has there been any anything that surprised you as you've assumed leadership?
I think the last podcast I was talking to about this too. I guess the misogyny is very different in this industry. Being in law, obviously it was more male dominated. Those statistics are changing rapidly in law. I think it's becoming like 50-50 men and women. And I think there's a baseline of respect because, we both passed the bar. So at a minimum, I know we're baseline intellectually, similar. So there seems to be more of a baseline of respect in law. Coming into this position, I've definitely had, have people walk past me to shake my vice president's hand thinking he's the owner.
Wow.
And I just kind of sit there and, laugh internally. And I've had a guy tell me, I was out working on the lot, and he's like, "Oh, we've come a long way from sewing," or something like that. I was like, "Yeah, I guess we have, sir." I don't really know how to respond to that kind of ignorance, I guess. So I don't, it doesn't take up any mind space in my head. But yeah, it's definitely much more male dominated. It's much more, which is also changing. I'm a member of the Women in Parking group with the National Parking Association. I'm on the advisory council, and even since I've started, which was only 3 years ago, the numbers in that group have gone, we used to be in a room this small. Now there's like a whole conference room, and men and women are coming. And so, even in a short time, it's really encouraging to see, the progress we're making in terms of representation, and, even having a presidential candidate, whatever your politics, that's huge. I mean, that is progress.
Yeah.
And progress takes a lot of time and can be really frustrating. And I'm just grateful to be living in a time that, my gender isn't a mark against me. And in fact, I'm really kind of the person du jour, a woman minority, like
Right.
who knew one day that would be a positive, so I'm grateful for that. And it's important to help other women. I think unfortunately sometimes when you get into these higher positions, you feel like, well, I gotta hoard, and I've gotta, I don't want to spread what this is. And I just, I'm not of that mind frame. I think there's more than enough for everybody. For as many Coca-Colas, there's also Mr. Pibb and ginger ale, like there is space for everybody. So it's, you're blessed to be a blessing. That was obviously a sentiment that was instilled in me very young, and I feel that way. And I make sure that we as a company engage in community service. I do that personally. I feel like that's kind of a way to bridge my old life and my new life now, because I do have a servant's heart, and I like to volunteer at the dog shelter. I'm a big sister with big brothers and sisters in Colorado. So, I just try to spend my life doing what feels good for me, and that's helping other people. So, yes, I have this, business that is for profit, and it has I want to say changed my mind, but it's given me a different side of the coin to think about that I hadn't really necessarily before.
Yeah.
Like some of these policies that are made and how they affect small business, or, it gives you more of a, I guess, a well-rounded understanding of kind of life and how it all works, because you need the money because people need to be employed. And you know what I mean? Money's not the enemy. It's just how people are getting it and how they're using it, So it's, the for-profit world's been different. A lot of duplicitous people, a lot of people who will do anything they can to get ahead. And, that's a little scary to me, but, I let them do their thing, and I just do my thing. I keep my head down. That's what I do a lot. I don't listen to the noise. I focus on my lane and what I can do. I can't compete with them and myself. And, I think when you get too much noise in your head, it can be detrimental. And I think it's just important to run your race, and everything else will kind of fall into place. That's kind of what I believe. And that's, I guess, what's gotten me to this point. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. I was going to say too, like that was going to be my next question. How are you navigating it? And like, what could be like advice that you could give someone that's assuming a business, or someone that's coming into, a leadership position for the first time, or even maybe just, because they're running into the same situation you went into, like, what advice would you give them? But obviously staying in your lane, I think is great advice, because that's what.
Hey guys, it's Icarus here.
And Amelia.
And I'm here to tell you if you'd like to join our brand new adventure. Go to DevonTaylorAuthor.com to learn more.
And check out the cool items like the new bucket hat.
Yeah, and so much more. See you guys there.
I've been trying to do.
It's It's easier said than done sometimes, but I think initially, honestly, just observing. I'm kind of big on observation and just taking things in, seeing what's already established. I mean, maybe if you're starting your own company, that won't be the case, but if you're coming into a situation that's already established and you maybe don't really know what's going on, and I did this even in law, just give it a week or two, kind of learn the players. Does Susie talk a lot? Does Dan mean? Whatever the situation is, kind of get a lay of the land of what you're walking into before you start engaging however you engage. I think it's really important for especially younger people to be aware that your reputation is really all you have. And it's the only thing you can kind of control. So just to conduct yourself in a way that you'd be proud of, that if somebody was recording you without you knowing, you'd be okay for them to play it back in front of your boss. Or if you are the boss, that you'd just be okay with that in the news. And you really just have to conduct yourself like that. Thankfully, I had a good run at that with law because, we had to be on the straight and narrow, not, you had to report every parking or every speeding ticket you get. I mean, you have to really be, highly aware of how you're conducting yourself at all times. I find the reaction loop we learned about that in law school too, how when you first feel something, your initial reaction is just to write it all down and call and scream or whatever it is. And it's really important to take 10 minutes, a half an hour, give yourself some time to cool down, and then think again about how you might respond to that. Because your reactionary response will be much harsher, much more angry than maybe you even intended. And that's not the way you want to conduct yourself in a professional environment. I mean, it might work from time to time, but that's just not how you want to be known.
Yeah.
And I tell my husband that with his employees all the time, because sometimes he's from Chicago, he's loud, blah, blah, blah. He's dealing with logistics people, so truck drivers, and they miss their pickup, and it's a high stress situation. But the mastery of your emotions, the control of your emotions, is like another key to unlocking the next step. Like, I do not think you can get where you want to go if you're not in control of your emotions. If the sky is falling, it does no good for your boss to be freaking out too, because people are looking to you for guidance and steadying the ship. Okay, this isn't great, but what can we do? And to always have your mind towards the solution. I don't love to sit and rehash things other than like, why did this happen? Like, how can we? But it always ends in what can we do going forward? What's the lesson? Like, this wasn't great. We'll get it fixed. Unless someone dies, it's really not the end. So there's always the opportunity to make it better, and to hopefully fix whatever's been done. But even if not, it's okay. Like, not every deal goes through. Like, not every hope and dream you've ever had will come to fruition. It's just doing the best with what what you've been given. And I that's what I would say. I would say my biggest suggestion would be to learn to control your emotions, not to not have them, but just, is this useful? Is this helpful in the moment? And that's been hard for me. That's been a lesson for me because, I'm used to arguing. I'm a professional arguer, really. So, when these things pop up, it's, sometimes your reaction is like, but you can't do that. That's not the way to, lead by example. And you're doing that right now with your nieces and nephews. They look at you and what you're doing. And I think we could all agree that, what you see demonstrated versus what is spoken resonates so much more. And, your kids see everything you're doing and they take that on, good or bad. And same is similar with the employees, because they pick up on whatever energy you're, putting out, and if you're like, oh God, this isn't going well, they're going to feel that way. And that's not how you want your employees to feel. It's important to maintain an aura of composure at all times. So, yeah, just conduct yourself in public and in private, like, somebody's watching, and that this could be broadcast on the news. And as long as you're okay with that, then I think you're doing pretty good. So
I feel like that's helped me too. I don't know why that's been something that I've naturally, maybe because I've been a coach, but like I've always thought of like, if I wasn't okay with someone recording, maybe I shouldn't be doing it. And it's always kept me safe. So that's great advice. So yeah. I'd like to know though, for the company, do you have any goals for the company? Like just like renovating the parking industry in any way, or
global domination. No. See, again, I don't think in those kind of ways. I mean, obviously, my goal at some point is to sell this company. But in the meantime, my job is to make that as attractive to an investor or a buyer as possible. So for me, in terms of, what can I do? I can make all my lots really clean. I can make them really well lit. As a woman, especially, that's a huge concern and priority of mine. So when you go by any of the nationwide lots next time you're in town, you'll see that there's a theme that, they all look good. And that's kind of my little mark. Now, is that a huge business strategy? No. Innovation, I think, is really the linchpin of that kind of development. And I'm not Elon Musk. I don't know how to reinvent the parking industry, but I am trying to leave whatever little mark I can, and hopefully other, companies would adopt that and understand the need for it. But yeah, I mean, it's just little by little. I don't think it's rarely overnight. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of late hours. I just always in my mind, I think brick by brick, like Rome was not built in a day. And even though my dad had this company for 30 years, it was really only in aviation. He would only do contracts. He'd be a subcontractor for the prime contractors as a minority partner, which is required on most of these federal contracts. So my dad was a doctor. This was kind of his side hustle, I guess you'd call it these days. Yeah. So when I took over, I think we had 2 or 3 lots, and now we're up to like 30 and 7 airports and 2 garages. So, I don't sit and think about that every day, but when you look back, it's like, okay, like we have made some progress. It doesn't always feel like that. Sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees, and it's just like 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and it can be discouraging and, all of that. But I think generally when you're actively working towards something, whatever that is, the progress will come. You just have to keep working at it. Your competitors might fall off. They might get too tired to continue, whatever it is. If you just keep doing what you're doing with focus and effort, there's just no way it won't work. Obviously there could be external factors, I guess, but generally I feel like when you work at something, even if it's a personal goal, right? Like I want to lose some weight. Okay. Every day I'm going to go walk around this block. The block gets bigger, the time gets longer, whatever it is, it's just little by little, and it will come eventually to a fuller picture of what you're trying to do. So I think, unfortunately, instant gratification and all of that's pretty common these days. Mm-hmm. And that's not the example I grew up with. Like my dad, we had a beautiful house and nice things, and but my dad was working to get that done, right? My mom was working before they were married, and I saw my dad. I'd go days without seeing my dad because he would be at work before I got up and come home after I went to bed. Like that's the kind of work ethic that was modeled for me my whole life. So I don't know, I don't have a lot of patience for people who are lazy or who don't try or complain when things aren't, it's like, well, are you working on it? Are you doing what you need to be doing? Because the rest generally falls into place. And I mean, I'm 40 years old now. I don't, know everything, but I have a little life under me. And when I look back on things like, man, I really like to try to get better at the Spanish. And I sat there every day with flashcards, and it's like, okay. And there's no shortcut to that. There's no shortcut, even like musicians or whoever that it's like, oh, you're a star overnight. It's like, no way. If you really knew that person, you'd know that person's been sleeping on, the floor of bars to play and is panhandling to make money to get a guitar, whatever it is. I mean, I'm sure we all are familiar with stories like that. And it's like, that's what it is. It's not, you're seeing the end result, but there's all of this other work that has happened to get you to that point. So I think, not appreciating the importance of time. Things take time. It may be a month, it may be 10 years, but even if you look back, like the owner of Alibaba, the founder of Alibaba, he didn't experience any success until he was 50. He had 4 failed companies before that, but he keeps trying, and that's what you have to do. Perseverance and resiliency, I would say, are like the most important things in a business. Like, your business could fail, but you haven't failed. You can still go back and use whatever lessons to make your next endeavor better, and there's a saying that I always really like. It's like, I never lose. I either win or learn. Like, you learn a lesson from every failure, and there is no success without failure. So, we've had things happen here that were not great, but you bounce back, you pivot, and you just learn how to get better. And that's, it's just a constant tweaking. There's not perfection. It's just, how can we be a little bit better today than we were tomorrow? How can we tighten these processes? How can we have more accountability? How can we be a better, employer? What are our employees missing, or what's their feedback? So those would be kind of the major lessons that I've learned, I guess, personally as well as professionally in the last 4 years. It's just to keep your wits about you, to know that the sun will always rise in the morning, that you've survived 100% of your worst days, and that, will continue until it doesn't. So, that's what I would say. To have integrity, to be like a person of your word, and, because there are people who are unscrupulous and they don't, they don't share that moral fiber or fabric, which is fine. And, you may see them rushing, getting way past you. And it's like, man, if I had been kind of skeezy, I would have gotten that too. But it's like, you have to live with that. You have to know that's how people perceive you. So I think generally just have to be able to look at yourself in the face at night and be like, all right, I did this how I wanted to. I conducted myself in a way that I'm proud of.
Exactly. I love that. Thank you. Yeah, that's such good advice. I only have one more question. How do you feel this new role has impacted your perspective on life? I know we've spoken a lot about like your dad preparing you for the role, but like, has there been anything that's really like changed since you've actually stepped into it?
Today's episode comes to you thanks to our sponsor, Kangen Water. Electrolytes reduced water is the power of true hydration, manifested in the most advanced Japanese technology that has been in the market for more than 50 years. To drink the best water, shower with a hot spring quality water, and start a new business with the most amazing and profitable compensation plan in the world, visit thelivingwatercouple.com to learn more or get started today.
I guess secretly in my heart, I'm impressed with myself that I've been able to manage, having the ability to surprise yourself and your capabilities. Like I was saying earlier, like sometimes you don't know what you're capable of until you have to do it, or, there was no real option. So it was, baptism by fire. But I think ultimately it's given me, I guess, more confidence in my abilities, and not necessarily my abilities in parking, but just as my abilities in terms of, I do have a brain that I can use, and these situations do have a resolution, and I have a brain that I can figure that out. So just trusting myself more, and leaning on people to help you. Asking for help is not a weakness. In fact, I think it's a strength. And there's no way one person knows everything. So it's like John's good at math, Steve's good at selling, Mary's good at marketing, whatever it is, like to really highlight other people's strengths, I think is like you assemble a team of the best. They're not all the best at everything. One's good at this, one's good at that, and together, you're a whole. But yeah, just it's like that what's that little Pooh saying? It's like you're stronger than you think, you're smarter than you appear. I'll have to send it to you. But yeah, just that, I'm capable, you're capable of a lot more than you think. I'm sure in your case, you were a young man just starting out on your life. Here's 4 kids. You're like, I can't do that. If you had told me that a year ago, I can't, what are you talking about?
Right.
But there you are, and you're doing it, right? Successfully. And it's the same in business. Like you just do. And you'll learn, you'll make mistakes, you'll have successes. Success is not linear. It does not go like this. And anyone who's been successful will tell you that. There's highs and there's lows. And, I guess that's another thing, not to ever get too emotionally tied up either way. My dad would always try to be like, Angela, never get too high, never get too low. Just try to always maintain, enjoy your successes, but know that that's not the end of the story. You will have another failure, and you will have a failure, but there will be other successes. So again, just that kind of perspective, I think, is really important. So you're capable of much more than you realize, and just to have faith in yourself and the process a little bit.
I know your message is coming at the perfect time, because even like when you're saying it, it's like making me feel like, oh, I needed that. So thank you. Oh. Yeah, that was really nice. And I'm so glad we made time for this. This is amazing. We did it. Thank you. But I don't have any more questions. I really appreciate you for being here. I don't know if there's anything you want to leave for anyone that's listening before we go, but thank you again.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's such a treat. I feel like I talked your ear off. Next time, hopefully it'll be more of a dialogue. But no, just life can bring you down, and life can be, daunting, even in the best circumstances. No life is free from disappointment and sadness and failures, but there's always another part of that coin. And if you give yourself grace and, just remember that you can do it, you're never alone. There's a lot of podcasts, even with grief. Anderson Cooper's got an amazing podcast. I don't know if you know anything about his life, but it's been full of grief. Oh, wow. And just, how you turn that into something positive, into some purpose. And just to keep going, just palante is what they call it in Spanish, forward, just always keep going forward. And, there will be other days in your life. Happiness is sadness, it's all part of the tapestry of life. So just keep going and know that a new day, whatever way you want that to go, will come eventually.
Thank you. That was beautiful. All right, y'all. Thank you for being here, Angela. And until next time, we'll see you guys. 17 stories and ideas to elevate the trajectory of your life. October 1st, 2024. Save the date. Discover 17 powerful stories and transformative ideas that guide you through overcoming tragedy, navigating obstacles, and finding the inspiration to live your best life. Ignite your inner fire and turn it into fuel with the wisdom and experiences from individuals from all walks of life, each dedicated to elevating the trajectory of your journey. Pre-order our new book at bookstrajectoryglobal.com. Trajectory. Reserve your copy now at no cost and receive a free gift.